The Chicago Bulls lose yet another game, this time to the defending champion Denver Nuggets, highlighting a lot of the issues with the team that we've seen so far this season. On today's episode, I'm not just going to break down the game. I'm going to talk about some of the issues with this team and ask, is the front office really delaying the inevitable and really breaking up this roster? We're going to talk about that all, plus dive into the mailbag right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host here, Hayes, but more importantly, make sure you guys are following the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the content for today. So at this point, I'm sure most Bulls fans are aware that the Chicago Bulls lost by 21 points to the Denver Nuggets yesterday. After playing a pretty solid half in which I think they had the lead at halftime in that game, but unfortunately, the Bulls just did not have enough. When you look at the Chicago Bulls, they played the Denver Nuggets close, losing the first quarter by 1 point, winning the second quarter by 3 points. Then, in the second half, either a combination of between the Denver Nuggets just turning it on and the Chicago Bulls realizing they are just outmatched. The third quarter, the Bulls lost that by 14 points, then went on to lose the fourth quarter by 10 points. At the end of the day, the Chicago Bulls got their asses kicked, and rightfully so, right? And yes, it's against the defending champions. Yes, we're still only a few games into the season. The Bulls sit at 2-5 right now. And is there enough time to turn it around? Absolutely, right? But the thing that we have to ask ourselves, and the thing that it seems like the front office is hesitant to really get the tough answer to this, is that what way does this team turn it around, right? We talked about so much that this team, like that 35-game glimpse that it gave us with Lonzo Ball, the team was rocking, rolling. While they were number one team in the East, I keep saying they wouldn't have stayed at that number one team because I was, while everybody else was wrapped up in a 9-game winning streak, was pointing out the flaws in this team and why it probably was going to eventually go worse, on top of the team losing to some of the best teams in the league at that time, but still being a team that I think would have finished top 4 or 5, probably would have pushed to make it to the second round. But that glimpse, I think, has held the Chicago Bulls front office in such a chokehold because, don't get me wrong, that glimpse was great. That roster that AK built was working to a degree, still had some very big flaws on it, but it was working. And I can understand why, as a architect, you can fall in love with that glimpse that we had and think, let's just get back to this. But the thing and the fact of the matter is that every year that goes by and we don't have a drastic improvement, we've technically gotten worse as other teams have made improvements around us, right? On top of the slip, the slide that eventually Vooch and Demar will go on, right? And we have nobody. We have no future backup center, a starting center prospect on this roster at all, right? None. Let's be clear here. None. Andre Drummond could definitely step in for a little bit and do some things, right? But we have no future center prospect on this roster. On top of that, most of the young players that the Chicago Bulls have drafted the last few years, we just don't know or can't confidently state that they are going to be a big part of a team in the future that's going to have success, right? Tons of question marks. Kobe White has shown so much growth, right? And I don't want to knock Kobe at all. He has shown so much growth. I love Kobe White, right? Patrick Williams is still a player that is still so highly inconsistent. Now, there are reasons for that. Some of it on him, some of it on development. You can place different things, but the fact of the matter is we still sit at a place where we're not sure. Ayo Dosunmu, who's out right now with injury and who's really been thriving in this role coming off the bench for the Bulls, and I think is really going to show, hey, maybe he's not a starter, but he can still have a big impact for a team. But again, it's still not he's still not at that level of player that you would say we feel comfortable him being a piece that we're building around. You can definitely say he's a piece that can be on a team going forward that can definitely play a role, but you can't really say you're going to build around it. And then you have Dalen Terry. We can't even get Dalen Terry on a court in meaningful minutes. Julian Phillips is another player that I still am extremely high on right now. But again, we don't know anything for sure because Billy Donovan isn't going to play him on a lot bit of a team, right? A guy that looks like it's going to be solid for the Bulls. But again, is it a build your team around type of talent? No. Adama Sanogo, I guess I did say we don't have any young big man prospects. He is one, but he's not ready yet, right? So you have those type of things that are playing into parts of this for the Chicago Bulls. And so, I asked the question here is that, are we just delaying the inevitable, or is the front office just delaying the inevitable? I get on here all the time and I tell you guys a rebuild is not likely, and it's still not, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't see the merits in a rebuild. It's just that I don't trust this front office to do it, right? This front office is so in love with that glimpse that we saw in 2021-22 that they just keep trying to find the right combination that's going to get us back there, right? And it's just not happening. It doesn't seem like it's happening. So in hearing the talks about the contract extension for Demar, us already extending Vooch, even though I think the Vooch contract is still a real reasonable deal, but like you got to ask yourself, what is the future of this? Do you think that you can bring in a piece, right? And again, the ownership absolutely has its place and limitations as well. We got about $15 million in exceptions just sitting around that the Bulls aren't using because reasons, right? Because of reasons. Because we can't go into the luxury tax, right? Which again, I keep saying luxury tax isn't an indication of necessarily being a team. There are a lot of teams that pay the luxury tax that are still in the lottery every year, right? I get that. But when you are a team that's trying to replace a $20 million dead salary that you're not getting anything out of, you would like to be able to use that to see what you can get back, but we can't even trust that, right? The Bulls sit in a place where the front office, I said it in yesterday's daily episode, you have to be prepared to find tough answers to the tough questions that are facing this team. And some of those tough questions are, what is the direction? And at some point, I get it. You brought in Torrey Craig, you brought in Javon Carter, who both definitely showed why they are good acquisitions by the Chicago Bulls. But you got to ask yourself, you're doing these moves just to barely stay afloat. And that is a problem when you're trying to build a team, a winning team. And while I still think a full blow-up rebuild that some people are calling for is unlikely to happen, a change does need to come. And they're delaying the inevitable in trying to make this work where clearly, whether it's the coach, whether it's the players, whether it is, you can't keep going forth with the majority of the same exact roster, albeit with some changes, and not and expect huge differences. The way that we're trying to play, I understand and respect. Trying to play with a quicker pace, trying to shoot more shots, trying to move the ball more open, trying to get players to move without the ball. I understand all of that. But you have to ask yourself, is even in doing that, because while some people will say, because of the results, well, the Bulls aren't doing anything different. No, go and look at the numbers. If you look at the numbers that where they're getting their shots, look at that versus where they got it last year. Things are changing, but it's the same result, right? And so that's when you got to ask yourself, you got to make a tough decision at some point, whether it be with the roster, whether it be with the coaching staff. And I don't trust this front office to make the tough decisions, right? And then even let's say we go full rebuild. Let's say we blow it all up. Do you guys trust this front office to draft correctly, right? Have they shown that, right? We talked about it before. How different this roster would look with just either going with Walker Kessler over Dalen, going with Tyrese Halliburton or Devin Vassell over PWill. The Amani Bates, I know some people are having the Amani Bates, Julian Phillips conversation. I feel comfortable in that one still, but we'll end up seeing it, right? But do you trust this front office? And that is where you're just like, what the fuck is the future? What is the plan here, right? And sometimes to grow, you have to be uncomfortable. And it feels like this front office is hesitant to be uncomfortable. And yes, that may mean losing. That may mean losing for a couple of years. Now, one person could say that this team is so bad, we may end up with a top 5 pick without having to tank this year because this team is trying, right? I know some people, I've seen it on Twitter, some people are saying, well, the tank is in. This team, I wish I could say the tank is in. This team ain't tanking. They just aren't able to get it done, right? So there's a tons of things and problems with the direction of this franchise right now. And regardless if you can change the head coach and Billy Donovan, that doesn't necessarily change the roster flaws, but maybe you can find a coach that can get more out of it. You can go in a different direction, but then you have to draft well for years. We talked about it. One thing that helps you as a team, especially as a team that isn't going to pay the luxury tax, is you have to draft extremely well to build that foundation, right? That doesn't mean that every draft pick is going to have to hit to be a star or even a starter, but that means that you have years worth of draft picks that are a solid foundation that once you finally do hit on one and a player hits that ceiling and becomes a star, that you already have so many pieces on that team, so many foundational pieces that can help support that. And the Bulls right now, they don't have that. And hopefully that changes in the future. But right now, the Chicago Bulls sit in a place where they got a lot of tough answers, a lot of tough questions, and we'll see if they try to answer those before the end of the season. But it's Sunday, so it's mailbag day. Enough of me ranting. Let's go ahead and get into the mailbag. This first voicemail, this one's from Cornelius.
Hey, what's going on, Hayes, man? It's Cornelius, man. I was very optimistic, man. Very optimistic about this team. I I don't know, man. I don't know, man. I went to the game and I seen it with my own eyes. They just don't. They're not playing for Billy, man. He lost the locker room. I hate to say this shit, man, because I was never this, but now, and I know it ain't gonna happen no time soon, Hayes, but it's inevitable. We need to blow this fucking shit up. We got to blow this shit up. We got to fire Billy D. And we got to get on Acme the way, because I'm a Raiders fan, the way us Raiders fans got on Mark Davis, the five motherfucker Dave Ziegler, and Josh McDaniels. Everywhere Mark Davis went, we was on his motherfucking ass. Everywhere. Even, I don't give a fuck if it was the visitors game. We on his ass. Fire Josh McDaniels. Fire this fucking bum. Everywhere he went. It didn't matter. That motherfucker's in the house coming out his own bathroom. Motherfucker's right there standing right there. Motherfucker fire Josh McDaniels. That motherfucker was out there eating in a restaurant. Us Raiders fans walking up to his motherfucking ass. Fire Josh McDaniels, bitch. Do what's right. Smarten the fuck up. And that's what we gotta do to Acme. We gotta see both of them motherfuckers, wherever they is in Chicago, make their life a living motherfucking hell. Tell these motherfuckers, fuck this, fuck y'all, and this is some goddamn bullshit. Straight the fuck up. Everywhere they motherfucking go, we straight up say, hey, fire motherfucking Billy D. Fire motherfucking Billy D. I don't give a fuck where they're at. I don't give a fuck they're in the park, an amusement park with their kids, having the grandest motherfucking time. You ruin that motherfucking day. You walk up to their motherfucking ass and say, you bitch motherfucker, you better fire Billy D. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. It's time for a change, y'all. It's really time for a change, and it's up to us. We got to boycott this shit. We got to shut this shit down. And it's up to us, man. Because like I said, it's difference between the NFL and the NBA. Yeah, we can get our owner. Like Hayes said, we can't get at Jerry. Jerry don't really make the decisions. Jerry just pay back and pay the fucking bills. So we got to get at the motherfuckers that's making decisions. And that's acting. And them two motherfuckers, wherever they go, they should be getting hell. Straight up. And I got some coaches in mind. Hayes, what about Jay Williams? He's a very intelligent basketball mind. I know he ain't got no experience, but his mind, I hear him talk, very intelligent. Brian Shaw, I believe he'll bring a culture to Chicago, and David Black, because I feel like the game is going in a different route, more European. Appreciate you, King. Have a blessed day.
Listen, Bulls fan needs to be vocal. First of all, it's hilarious. It would be hilarious to see fans with AK going out to eat and people just saying fire Billy. Fire Billy. Here's what I'll say. Billy Donovan is a huge part of the Chicago Bulls problems here. Right, the lack of adjustments, the lack of holding players accountable, the doubling down on your stars. While it may make you a player's coach, it doesn't necessarily always get you to winning. Right, and Billy Donovan has won games he's won a high number of games in his NBA career with the Thunder teams. Right, but again, you sit in a place where you do need a coach that is going to force players to do some things that they needed to do. The lack of movement without the ball is unacceptable. And while yes, the players still have an accountability for that, coaching. You should make players feel so uncomfortable to not move without the ball that they look and be like, damn, coach about to bench. And we don't have that. So, listen, there's a lot of problems with this team. Coaching is a big one of them, and I can't be mad at anybody who focuses on the coaching aspect of it. Like I said, Billy Donovan could be a great to amazing person. I have no idea, and to me, it really doesn't matter. Shout out to them. I mean, let me not say it doesn't matter. It's good to have good people in your organization that are just good humans, right? But at the end of the day, for this team to dig itself out of where it is, you got to really start asking the tough questions. Is Billy Donovan here? One of the things they highlighted in the hiring of Billy Donovan was they preached development. Have we seen that from Billy Donovan? I'll let you guys answer that one. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Reginald.
Hey, man, this bull game is some BS right now. I'm watching Billy take out Patrick Williams, who's finally starting to show a little effort, and keep Zach LaVine in right when he misses a technical free throw, turns the ball over on a bad pass, and then watch Michael Porter Jr. make a three, then turn right back around, take a poorly shot three from deep. And I'm like, why is Billy keeping him in the game? Halfway through the fourth, you know he ain't playing right. Take him out, put Demar in, let PWill and Torrey Craig stay in for defensive help, and at least slow them down. This is just half on Billy, half on Zach. Zach for playing like trash and Billy for coaching like trash. But, hey, man, thanks for letting me vent.
Reginald again, talking about the Chicago Bulls coach. Listen, coaching decisions, not riding the hot hand, right? It's something that we always have a problem with. You can literally say in every game, Javon Carter in last night's game got to cook. I'm talking about he was one of the only Bulls players playing with heart and like they understood the sense of urgency needed to try to dig themselves out of that hole. And Billy Donovan pulled him, right? This is something that we can see in some of the bigger games for the Chicago Bulls, that he pulls out the hot hand. And a lot of times he does it to go back to his stars, right? And so, again, when you have a coach that is not going to be willing to make tough decisions, make tough choices, to hold players accountable, that is a bad place for your franchise to be in, especially when you need a leader. This team is missing a vocal leader. And sometimes when you don't have that on the court, the coach is the one that turns into that. And we don't have that either. But again, let me know you guys' thought on everything down below. Let's get into this next one. This one's from Big O.
What's going on, Hayes? Big O, brother. How you feeling, man? Calling in, man, 'cause I got a question. Listening to your episode made me think about something. So I want to ask you, what, in your opinion, what do you think is more likely to happen? The Bulls trade Patrick Williams, or the Bulls blow this core up? That's my question. And I honestly, in my opinion, I think it's more likely that they blow this core up versus trade Patrick Williams. And I say that because I noticed a lot of people, and you know, as they should right now, it's pretty much shitting on Patrick Williams. He is not playing that well, though he had a decent game coming off the bench the last game. But I say that because you're absolutely right. Regardless of what, I expect Patrick Williams to get a second contract, even if it's not a huge deal. The reason being is because the core is not good enough for the front office to want to trade Patrick Williams. For example, I know the last guy, you know, he talked about Jeremy Grant, or whatever the trade rumor, whatever could be out there, whatever they can get for Patrick Williams. It just wouldn't make sense to continue to build around this core and trade your young people when your core is not good enough. Now, the difference is if this core was an automatic playoff team and you said, hey, we probably a piece and a half away, maybe we give up the young guy and go get something more, more surefire to bring in and help us get over the hump. But since that's not the case, it just don't make sense to trade Patrick Williams. It's probably more likely to blow this core up. You know what I mean? Even though that might not happen either, maybe more like a retool, but just for the sake of the conversation. The second thing I want to add, though, is that Patrick Williams, to me, he's having a little bit of an Andrew Wiggins syndrome. Even though Andrew Wiggins had a little bit more hype coming into the draft, but this was a guy that didn't really live up to his expectations either, though he went to a team, was able to put up numbers, but he was never really a number one. So, you know, seeing Andrew Wiggins have success as a fourth or fifth option in Golden State, if I'm Patrick Williams, that's a guy that I probably want to study, or I need to probably reach out to and pick his brain on where he do and how he was able to overcome, you know, some of his downfalls and was able to, you know, make a good career out of a basketball career. So, you know, that's kind of like what popped in my head, you know, thinking about Patrick Williams. It's just, you know, for me, I know it's going to take time with this kid, but I don't know if the Bulls going to be the situation for him. I just don't. So we'll see.
Great question here. Are the Bulls more likely to trade PWill or blow the core up? I would say probably blow the core up. Listen, Patrick Williams is getting a second deal. Now, one could say that both could be true. In a move to blow up the core, they could send PWill out in one of those moves, so and get more first-round picks back. So there's something to be said about that as well, that both could happen. But if you're asking me either or, I would probably say the core. One of the core pieces being moved before I'm willing to bet, because, again, I really think, again, as we talked about trauma with this front office, that they look at Larry going away. Wendell's been the same player. I don't give the Wendell piece of it. But they look at Larry going away. And I do think that they see that and say, we don't want to do that again. And whether it's right or wrong, we'll see. The history end up telling the story on that, right? But I think they see that. But I do think that PWill, with the way that he's played, he's not going to sign a huge deal. Maybe a shorter deal, maybe a 2-year or 3-year deal to get him back in free agency sooner rather than later. That may be the case. But listen, I think if you're asking me which one's more likely, I'm going to say more likely is that PWill's move. Now, as far as the Wiggins and PWill comparison, the one thing I'm going to push back with you on that one, though, is that Andrew Wiggins came into this league averaging 60. He's averaged 19 points per game for his career, right? First year, 17 points. Second year, 20 points. Second year, third year, 23 points per game. He didn't drop back off to 17 and 18 because that team changed the makeup of it a lot. But again, Wiggins showed things that we just haven't seen from PWill. So even then, Wiggins saving his career was a much different prospect than Patrick Williams just proving he needs to have a career, right? So I understand it, and finding out your role and your place on the team and things like that. And Wiggins could mentor PWill on that, but again, we gotta stop making these comparisons because Wiggins came into the league, and at least the one thing that he showed is that he wasn't afraid to score the ball. He wasn't afraid to go out there and get his decision making, those type of things. The consistency on defense definitely needed work, but one thing you didn't have to worry about with Wiggins was him trying to take shots, him trying to insert himself into games. Right now, that Minnesota team had very different aspirations at first, but yeah, so it's a little bit different there. But all right, let's get into the next voicemail. This one's from Ron.
Yeah, what's good, Hayes? This is Ron. I wanted to ask you about this trade idea. Let's just say the Chicago Bulls is not looking like how they're supposed to look like during the midseason point, and it's time to move on from somebody, right? So let me break down this trade, right? What you think about in the grand scheme of things, right? Would this make Chicago Bulls? I don't know if it makes a contender, but I think it would definitely help the roster out, right? So what you thinking about trading DeMar DeRozan, right? You get rid of his contract, right? I mean, he's a free agent anyways, but we get something back, right? And we trade DeMar, and we probably trade Terry Taylor. We get rid of, because he's here for another 2 years, right? We get rid of his contract, right? Because it's like we're not using him or nothing like that. And we trade both of them to Detroit for Bojan, right? Who's making $20 million this year. He will be making 19 next year, right? So we would keep him. Yeah, obviously we keep him on, but we get Bojan, right? Who is a 20-point scorer in his lead, who shoots close to 50% from the field and 40% for three. Now we will lose. Both of them is not great defensively, but DeMar to me is definitely better defensively than Bojan. But Bojan will bring that shooting that we definitely need, right? He spaces the floor. Even though he's older, he still fit to me our offense that we need. And also you add in Alex Burks. He's getting a aspiring contract. So we will free up $10 million, right? And so basically Bojan and Alex Burks for DeMar DeRozan and Terry Taylor, or Taylor, I would say the name, or even Dalen Terry. If we could somehow get rid of those two contracts, I don't know now Detroit will want Dalen Terry, anything like that, but I see no reason for Detroit wanting to hang on to Bojan, where they clearly going younger, and Alex Burks has an expiring contract, so you might as well get rid of him. And then Detroit will free up a lot of space to try to go after a big free agent in the summertime, so it makes sense on the Detroit side. And then on the Bulls side, we would have a shooter, two shooters at that. Alex Burks could shoot too. Alex Burks shoots close to 40% for his career. He shoots 38% for his career. Now, he's not the greatest defenseman as well, but we can even get him and then trade him more for a legit power forward or something like that. Someone to help on the backside, help Vooch besides Andre Drummond. So a taller power forward. What you think about that?
All right, trading DeMar to get Bojan and Alex Burks. Here's what I'll say. I looked it up. I think the trade theoretically does work. It does offer a different at the three because you do have a thing to stretch the floor, so I understand where you're getting at with that. You have to ask yourself about the Detroit Pistons, though. Would they want an aging DeMar DeRozan? Now, you could say they have young players that need to be mentored as well. You can also say that, hey, he's an expiring contract, so even if he doesn't factor into their long-term plans, it's less years than what Bojan's contract is, right? So that definitely plays a part. This is one of the more well-thought-out trade ideas that we've gotten on the show, and I understand where you're getting at. And here's what I'll say. While I know a lot of Bulls fans would riot on it because Bojan is not the type of player that DeMar is, I do think that Bojan could have a great impact for this Bulls team because of the way that he gets his points, because of the way that he can shoot, because of the way he can stretch the floor and do some passing as well. He's a defensive turnstile as well, but again, you're talking about trading that for DeMar DeRozan. So, but DeMar just has more of that killer instinct, right? So there's that into it as well, but maybe you don't need as much of the killer instinct. Like I said, I'm not necessarily saying this is a trade that I would do, but I am saying that it's thought out, and it definitely does help the Bulls in some areas that we do need help in. I don't know if the Bulls are likely to do. I don't know if both sides would be motivated to do this deal, but I do like the thought process that you put into it behind it because I do think that is a player that again helps with 3-point shooting, can do so at a solid clip and rate, isn't a hugely ball dominant player, right? Has figured out a way to go out and get his regardless. So I like that. Again, Demar's a very different caliber player, a Hall of Famer, right? And so I'm not at all comparing the players and who they were, who they've been for their career, but I'm understanding what you're trying to bring to this specific team and the needs that we have here. There's that. Now, he is injured, I think, right now, so you have those injury concerns, so to say. But listen, Bojan is a player for his career. He averages taking 5 threes per game, hitting that at a 40% clip. The Bulls could definitely use that and use that in the starting lineup. So far, he hasn't played this season, but last season he played 59 games. He averaged 21 points per game in that. He shot the ball 48% from the field. He took 6 3-pointers, making about 2.5 of those at 41%. So listen, that's all solid. That's all solid production, and the Bulls could definitely use that. But I don't know how motivated both sides would be in that trade, but very well thought out there, Ron. Thank you for that trade idea. Let me know what you guys think on it down below. All right, last voicemail. This one's from Shay.
Yo, hey, what's up, man? I'm going to need to say this to all these old dumbass fans that's saying. The matter I got 2 things to say. Okay, for all y'all dumbass people that's clamoring for a rebuild, please shut the hell up. Because ain't nobody trying to do no damn rebuild. Now, look, I know what people say. Are we denying that inevitable? No, how about this? The inevitable is this, we're a talented team, but we just don't know how to be ran by a terrible coach, for one. And for all y'all that's screaming, trade Patrick Williams. You know what? Y'all the same dumbass people that yelled trade Wendell Carter, Laurie Marketing, and as a matter of fact, hell yeah. And look where they're at now, okay? See, everybody always screaming trade somebody, they want this person, they want that person. You know what, how about this? Learn to work with what you got first before you want something else, and then you'll probably get better. But hey, nah, y'all Bulls fans are just like some microwave bull bitches. Y'all want everything too quick. Everything is a process, people. One day you'll have to realize that. Anyway, tell me what you think. Peace.
Everything is absolutely everything is a process, but you have to ask yourself about the people that are going through the process. What's on the other end of the process? So yes, everything's a process. And I know we live in a microwave mindset society where everybody wants everything now. They want to make these hardline determinations on who somebody can or can't be right away, right? And that's not always true. We see players kind of dig themselves out, but here's what I'll say. People are showing some things coming off the bench for sure, right? And I say this, like it's still not enough yet, but it's been a very short sample size, so there it goes. But like you said, the same people who talk about, wanted Laurie gone or talk crap about Laurie, the same people, now they're like, hey, what if we had Laurie? The same people who were saying Kobe White should have been traded into the start of the 2021-22 season are now sitting there saying, hey, let's get Kobe some more shots, right? So it's that type of thing. At the end of the day, it comes down to the trust in the front office and their decisions, and also the development. The biggest thing that's wrong with this team right now is that we have not had solid development. Yes, we hired a shooting coach. Yes, we have a player development staff. You got to give them some time to do their job. It's not going to be immediate. Again, that microwave society type mindset, but at least they're starting to make changes to that. And I honestly think that pivot that we're seeing from AK may hint at where he thinks this team may end up going. Let me know your guys' thoughts on everything down below. That's my time. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See you right if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.